In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure OSPF with the global method. The previous video was the interface method. However, with this topology, it's a little more complex, so I'm going to have to use global method. So what I've got is a single area 0. That'll cover all three routers here for this WAN core. Also this LAN segment. So the LAN segment, I've got this multi-layer switch, switch 2. And it's connected with a trunk to this layer 2 access switch, switch 1. And I've got two VLANs here. First LAN segment is 172.16.1/24, and the second LAN segment is 172.16.2/27. What I'm going to do is advertise the WAN links between all routers. I'm also going to advertise this 172.16.3 network. This is the connection between switch 2 and R1. Finally, I'll advertise all loopbacks, as well as the network addresses for VLAN 10 and VLAN 11. Routers are set up somewhat similar. I've got three physical interfaces and a loopback. So the three subnets between each router, that's using a /30 subnet mask. And that's typical since it's a WAN point-to-point link. And the loopback is a /32. So what I need to advertise is the WAN links, and that includes this link between switch 2 and R1. And they're all using /30 subnet masks. There's also the loopback on all the devices, and that's a /32. So I'll start the configuration with R1. So the first command is router OSPF1. So those are the network addresses assigned there. So 192.168.2, 192.168.1, and 172.16.3. They are the network addresses. And also 192.168.255.1. As mentioned, that's a host address. So I'll start with the loopback. And the wildcard mask is 0000. So that matches every octet here, 192.168.255.1. That's what you use for host address. And just advertise it to area 0. And now we'll just up arrow. This is going to be network address 192.168.2.0. This will have a 0003 wildcard mask. And that's equivalent of a /30 subnet mask. There's also study notes in this section that explains wildcard masks. And then advertise to area 0. Then I'll up arrow again, and I'll just change this to a 1. 192.168.1 network address. And the same wildcard mask. And finally, I've got the 172.16.3.0. That's also a /30 subnet mask. So the result is all these interfaces will be enabled for OSPF, and those network addresses will be advertised to any OSPF-enabled neighbors. Just do copy run to start. Now I'll go to R2. And you could also use show protocols when starting this. What that'll do is it'll give me all the physical interfaces and the subnet mask. Show IP interface brief won't give the subnet mask. So I can just go through all three of these here. 192.168.3 subnet, 192.168.1 subnet, and then there's the loopback 192.168.255.2. That's a /32. These are /30s as mentioned, so they're still 0003 for the wildcard mask. And I'll just up arrow and then just change this to 1. And finally got the loopback. That's 192.168.2.5.5.2. That's a host address. There is no LAN segment with R2, so I'll move on to R3 now. What I've got is 3 physical interfaces and a loopback. 192.168.2 and 192.168.3. Also got the LAN segment 172.16.4, and that's a /24. The other two are /30, so 2 /30s and a /24. And the loopback is 192.168.2.5.5.3. So I'll just start with the loopback. Here's 192.168.2 subnet. So the 3 subnet. You can use logging synchronous command to prevent this being interrupted by these adjacency messages. So 172.16.4.0. So that's the LAN segment. Need to change this to 255, since wildcard masks just invert the subnet mask. So if you had 255.255.255.0, you have to invert that. You get the 000.255. So it's the opposite. That's area 0. So 172.16.4.0, correct. And that should do it. Now I'm going to move over to switch 2. Now since this is a layer 3 switch, I have to enable routing services. And that's done with the IP routing command. So on switch 2, I've got a loopback 172.16.2.5.5.1. That's a /32. So I want to advertise that. Also want to advertise this 172.16.3 network address. That's got a /30. That's on interface gig 103 on switch 2. Then there's also VLAN 10, 172.16.1/24, and VLAN 11, 172.16.2/27. I'll start with router OSPF 1 command. That's a global command. And this is the loopback. That's going to be advertised to area 0. 172.16.2.5.5.1. Then the WAN link between switch 2 and R1. And that's on 172.16.3.0. Here it is there. 172.16.3.0. Now I've got the VLANs. First one is a /24, B255. This is a 172.16.1. You can see it there. 172.16.1/24. And a /24 wildcard mask. And the other one is 172.16.2/27. And the /27 subnet mask is 31 wildcard mask. That's going to be a 2 subnet. It's 172.16.2. I'll do copy run to start. Now I'll start with the OSPF adjacencies. And I'm on switch 2 right now, so there's only a single neighbor. That's R1, 192.168.2551. That's the loopback. It's the router ID, since I haven't configured the router ID manually. It's got full adjacency, so everything looks fine there. Notice the gig 103. That's shown right there on the interface. Now I'll go to R1. And I've got 3 adjacencies. 172.16.2551, that's switch 2. And 192.168.2552, that's R2, full adjacency. And 192.168.2553, that's R3. That has full adjacency. So R1 has full adjacency with switch 2, R2, and R3. Go to R2 and verify there's adjacency with R3 and R1. And there it is, 192.168.2553, full adjacency. That's R3. And the bottom one is R1. So R2 has full adjacency with R1 as well. So if R2 is adjacent to R3, then that's already been verified. I don't have to go to R3 to verify the same thing. Now I'll go to R1 and look at the routing table. They're in numerical order. The 172.16 is a lower numerical number than 192.168, for example. So Cisco orders them from lowest to highest. These OSPF routes at the top, 172.16, 1, 2, and 3. These are all inter-areas since it's only single area. So 172.16, 1, 172.16, 2, and 172.16, 3. So the first two are VLAN 10 and 11, and the next one is that link to switch 2. This one is 172.16.4. That's this LAN segment with this server, 172.16.4. So everything's working fine. I've also got the loopback from switch 2, 172.16.2551. And at the bottom there, the loopbacks from R2 and R3. So everything looks pretty good there. If I go to R3, I'll make sure the VLANs are there. So R3 has those routes as well, 172.16, 1 and 2, as well as 3. That's from switch 2. You can also do this command. That'll just give me the OSPF routes. So it gets rid of all the connected routes since I'm just interested in OSPF. And it'll list them there, just OSPF. And then R2. So the first two, 172.16, 1 and 2, that's the VLAN 10, 11. And 172.16.3, that's from switch 2. And 172.16.4, that's the server subnet. And also the loopbacks. The bottom one is from R1 and R3. And 172.16.2551, that's from switch 2. And the packet tracer lab with this video will include a Class C subnetting table. It also includes the wildcard masks. That's what I've got here. The /27, for example, that's the subnet mask. Number of subnet bits and the host bits, and also the maximum number of hosts, and the wildcard mask, 00031. So that verifies that OSPF routing is working correctly, and that concludes the video.